Okay guys, last package. Man, this backlog has really just been sitting there forever. There's been cards in here that had no idea that was coming out, especially that Manny Ramirez right there. That card is sick. I can't get over that card. Alright, last one. Oh, okay. And we ended with a flop. It was on one of the message boards, and somebody had the PSA 9 card of this available. Man, the smell of cigarettes from this card, overpowering. I feel like you just walked into a 1970s hotel room in Reno. Goodness gracious. Anyways, so yeah, I was on one of the forums. Somebody had this card up for just a couple of dollars, like 30 bucks or something like that. And I was about to just send him a message and say, yeah, I'll pick that up. I mean, this card is related to this card in that it is from the 1986-1987 era. This is the XRC, the pre-rookie card era and year of Bonds. 1987 is the true rookie card. There's a lot of debate now about what that should mean and what that does mean, but to me, the 86 is a pre-rookie year for Bonds. He actually played in 1986, but because he started so late in the season, the main sets from 1986 had already been printed and distributed, so he could only be added to the traded sort of box set that's released at the end of collecting season. And I just don't think that these are quite as, they just shouldn't be quite as valuable in my opinion as cards that are coming out of a pack where you don't know what you're going to get. If you buy a box of 1986 Topps Traded, you're going to get this Bonds card in every single box. You know that you're going to get every player that was released in the traded set in every traded set that you buy. I just think that that's not keeping with the tradition of what it's like to buy a pack of cards and not know what it is you're getting inside. This is too much of a sort of a gimmick to be able to buy the whole set at once. They released Topps Traded in packs where you didn't know what you're going to get, which Topps did do some years. That's a different story, but in this case, whoever bought a box of this product and pulled this card out of it knew that this card was going to be inside. Now, what they didn't know was what kind of condition this card was going to be in. And if you can see here, the Pirates sort of team name at the top of the card, the P is offset past the left of the picture, and the S is also kind of off center. And so for the more expensive, more valuable Topps Traded Tiffany, which looks very much like this, but was released in a fancier, glossier set, more expensive commemorative set, but with the same principle of you buying the set and getting every single player in that set. It's just basically a glossier parallel of this traded. I believe that whoever was cutting those cards centered the card around Pirates, and so a lot of the traded Tiffany cards are shifted to the left and have a much thicker left white border, because everything is moved this way to try to get Pirate centered rather than the photograph centered. That's not nearly as big of a problem in just the regular Topps Traded, but I believe that this is the most graded 1986 or 1987 Bonds card around, something like some ridiculous 5 or 10,000 PSA 10s. And so there's obviously so many of these cards made that slabbed versions of these are virtually worthless. This is just because I don't have this card in my collection. I've always wanted to just buy the Topps Traded set, pull a card from a couple of sets, and then find the best one and send it in. But prices have gone up, and it just may not be worth that. So I've been sort of online trying to find an even cleaner copy than the card that was being advertised on that forum. And I was focused most of all on centering. So left-right centering here is pretty good. It's a little bit thicker to my eye on the left side. It's, I think, perfectly centered top to bottom. Maybe a little bit thicker, but it's just really hard to tell honestly, when the Pirates is off center, what are you supposed to use as a point of reference? Most people use the picture and the white margin on the side, but you could be forgiven for looking up here in the black and seeing how much black is on to the right of the S than there is to the left of the P. And I think that whoever was responsible for cutting all 5,000 copies of the Topps Traded Tiffany focused more on the yellow Pirates and where it was centered rather than the photograph and where it was centered. But I mean, these cards, especially in Tiffany, have a lot of issues on the surface where these cards brick together, and so as you peel them apart, they flake off some of the surface and you get a lot of snow. I don't know if that's as much of a problem in the traded sets because there's no glossy laminate for that to sort of happen. I guess the pigment and ink could still stick to the back of the card, but it's much less likely if it's just a plain old cardboard card. So I'm looking at it right now in the light to see if I can see any surface issues, and I can't really. You know, with all the trimming issues, people have trimmed like a 50-cent card. Just a shame, you know. And so I was trying to find a card that like filled the chamber of this PSA slab as fully as possible to lessen the chance that this card was trimmed. Not that it matters, this card is so plentiful. There's so many versions of this card in PSA slab at high grades that it doesn't really matter. But as a collector, you want a card, regardless of value, that hasn't been tampered with, that hasn't been touched. I believe it or not, I don't have a copy of this, I don't think, at least in a high grade, in my collection. So I decided to just go out, find one with high eye appeal that was nicely centered up front. And this is one of the best ones I saw. This is more nicely centered with higher eye appeal than a lot of PSA 10s that are many times the value of this. And I just don't think I'm ever going to be able to pick up a PSA 10 because I personally don't value a PSA 10 of this super plentiful, super common card as highly as maybe some folks do. I just think that the margins, the difference in quality between a PSA 10 and a PSA 9 for cards like are dubious at best, honestly. Like you crack 110s and 109s and mash them all together and have PSA grade them all again, I would be very shocked if there was any sort of consistency at all. Just because, I mean, grading conditions and grading standards have changed over the years. This is a really old flip, it's like almost a dot matrix like one. God, it looks like it's about the 10 millionth card ever graded by PSA, which seems high, but you can see that this flip is really old. Not sure which generation, but it's one of the early ones. I'm going to look at this under a microscope. I want to blow it up and make sure that the edges are roughly cut. If the edges are roughly cut, I would be more satisfied that this was untampered with. You would think, why would you tamper with a card that they printed 1 million copies of? People are just unscrupulous out there, you know? Like, I can't answer that question, but I do know that it does happen, and it's just kind of a shame. So I'm gonna have to look at this card and make a video about the 87 and 86 bonds. I want to update everybody on, you know, where we are on pop counts and everything, and just give my opinion about what I think people should be going after in this day and age. Okay guys, thanks for watching. Until the next one.